Right, hello and welcome to another Dauntless development video. Today we're going to be looking at the first in a series of devlogs on a new project I'm working on. This is 1 week into the project and yeah, I've made some good progress so far. So what I'm working on is a RogueLite dungeon crawler. Think Diablo, but significantly lower production value. If you're a follower of this channel, you might know that I have another series of devlogs about a VR tower defense. That is shelved for now because, various problems with it. They updated the way the VR system works anyway, so I'm going to have to remake it anyway. It will come back, but I will have to start again. So yeah, what's this game about? So, it is a co-op game. So it's got multiplayer. The multiplayer is working somewhat. There are some bugs, but it's mostly working. Where you fight through a procedurally generated floor of enemies, going to a boss, defeat the boss, move to the next floor, etc. And the idea is you will start from the bottom and then work your way up. So the basis of how I'm thinking to start that out is you start out imprisoned in like a dungeon, and then you fight your way up until you get to like the king or the dude who imprisoned you, and that's kind of the final boss. So obviously the theme will shift as you go in, bosses based on the floors you're on. I've got plans for a kitchen level with a chef boss. So yeah, it's kind of fun. So the idea is you'll start from nothing, so everybody will start at exactly the same. There's no classes, no particular paths you have to go down. You don't kind of create a character other than customizing it how it looks. You don't really make anything at the start. You can develop it as you go. So you'll develop that by earning stats. So you'll get XP. You'll be able to spend stat points and then once your level stats up, you can get perks and stuff and new abilities. So you could potentially be a mage who also wears heavy armor and can wield a two-handed sword, for example. It's in a fantasy setting, which you would guess based on what I just described. So no guns. It's just kind of standard fantasy setting. So what's been going on this week? As I'll show you a clip, I'm going to have clips running in the background here. I have some basic point-and-click movement using the Unity nav mesh and nav agents that's built in. I have an animated character and enemy, so an animated player character. I have some symbol combat, so you can point and click on enemies. You can hold shift to attack in whatever direction you're facing, and it'll face in the direction of the cursor. So it's kind of similar to Diablo if you've played that, in which you can hold shift to hold still and not move whilst you click. There is some simple UI implemented, so you can mouse over enemies and things to have it highlight them. Show the health bar at the top of the screen and their name, as well as some health bars for the players, some health bars above all the enemies. They're probably going to be toggleable, so you'll be able to have them on or off depending on what your preference is. Cooldowns, so when you are attacking, every attack will have a cooldown. One thing that I guess is worth noting is there will be more than one attack. Currently in the game, there is only one attack. But right now, that was just to kind of get the basic functionality. So whenever you attack, you've got to wait for the cooldown to end. And as you'll see in the clip, the cooldown bar on the bottom left for your attack is there. There's also a roll or a dodge that is in the bottom right, and that's the radial cooldown there. So that'll just kind of throw you forward and play an animation. I've got some combat text that's probably a little bit hard to see on the footage. I'm going to make it a lot bigger, a lot better. For now, obviously, it's kind of hard to judge it when there's not a lot of attacking going on, so I'll wait and see before I tweak it too much. But it is there. It just needs making bigger and maybe add some effects to it. I've got some simple AI, so right now, if you just enter an aggro range, they will follow you until you leave the aggro range and they find somebody who's closer. So what you'll see is that when I'm running the co-op and I've got 4 players, if I lure an enemy past another player, for example, and I'm out of the range, it will go for the player who's closest. Currently, the co-op is unlimited, theoretically. It's got as many spaces as the connection can take. But in the future, that will be probably capped absolutely at a max of 8 through playtest, and I'll decide if I want to keep it at 4. That's the kind of standard formula. But I'd like to push for more if I can still maintain some difficulty and fun in the game whilst having more players. So, what's been used to make the game? So far, what I've used is GIMP. I've used GIMP for all of my UI kind of things so far, which isn't a lot, but it is my go-to because I don't pay for Photoshop. I used a software called KenShape, which I'll provide a link to because I think it's brilliant. It's from this site called Kenny, and I can't remember. As I said, I'll post the link. But there's lots of free and cheap assets on there. Most of it's free, but he's also, I'm not actually sure if it's a he, but they have also produced this cool little software that lets you basically draw pixel art and make it become 3D very easily. So that's what I've used for this. As somebody who struggles with modeling immensely, it's been fantastic. I've used Blender to modify these models afterwards, so obviously it is limited. It does put a face on both the front and back of the head with that KenShape, so I've got to take the face off the back of the head, but that I can handle. I've been using Unity, as expected, and to do the co-op I've used the new ML API stuff that has just came out this year. For coding, I've obviously used Visual Studio, and yeah, that's everything I've used. In terms of known bugs, one bug, which will be a simple fix, is that looking towards the mouse makes the player lean forward and back, depending on where you position the mouse. So if you put it too close to the player, they will lean very far back. Is it very far forward? I think it's very far forward. The point is, I'm modifying all the rotational axes instead of just the Y. So I need to just change it to modify only that. Because I'm just using, if you're familiar with the look at function in Unity, that's what I'm using. And obviously that modifies all the axes. So I just need to lock it down to just the Y. That'll be a simple fix. I've known about it since it happened, but I've never bothered fixing it yet because it's not that important. One thing that's a big problem that I don't know how to fix at the moment is the cursor seems to drift. Not as in where your cursor actually is, but where it selects enemies. So it seems that there's a problem with the raycast, and I'm going to have to figure out what that is. But it seems to not line up correctly. So when you mouse over an enemy, it might not select them. And you might have to mouse over somewhere at the bottom of the screen to select them. So it's a weird bug. But I'll have to figure that out. But so far, no clue on why. And the final bug that I know of is that if you roll when you're really close to a wall, you can go through the wall. And I think I've got an idea how to solve that. I think that's just because I need to add something called a nav mesh obstacle. Nav mesh obstacle. And that should solve it. So what's coming next? In the next week, I'll be adding more abilities. My aim is another 4. I'll be adding more enemies. Again, my aim is another 4. And these should be all animated and modeled, at least somewhat. I'm not going to necessarily do every animation possible, because I'd also like some randomization in animations, so it's not the same animation for the same attack every time. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 kind of options. I also want level generation, as right now the level is put together manually. So that will be obviously very core to the gameplay. So I really need to get that done. Sound effects, as the game currently has no sound, I'll just add some in, like a bass sound for every attack, and stuff like that, and that'll get polished further on. Some character customization, which does already exist somewhat. You can select your head on the menu when you're logging in, but that doesn't really matter. At the moment, it only changes it for you. It's not networked, so I do need to change that. And one thing I'm potentially thinking of testing is PvP. So I'm going to test that out next week, and see how well it works. It's kind of hard to test it without multiple abilities. So I want to be able to test it when there's like an ability to block / dodge and stuff like that, so that players can actually kind of fight against each other. I don't really want it to be a core part of the game, but I was thinking it would be cool for like a tutorial if you've just got to fight your friends, and then like work together, maybe like some kind of prison break thing. But yeah, that's all for this week. I will be posting a written up version of this to my website, probably in a day or two. There's a link to that on my YouTube channel. And if you want to go there, you can subscribe with your email address. You'll get an email whenever I post something to the site. So that'll just be any updates on anything I'm working on, specifically game dev related. But yeah, that's all for now. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.